then you're kind of getting into this mindset of like, first, you don't have to do laundry as often, and things definitely last a lot longer. Well, hello there, welcome back to my channel. I am continuing this slow fashion series, giving you all the tips and tricks about how to buy, what to look for, how not to buy, how to develop your personal style, and all of those things in between. So if you want, I'm gonna have a playlist of everything of the series that I've kind of made so far, and you guys can check it out at your leisure. Today's video though is going to be about how to actually make your clothing pieces last for a super long time. This is very useful if you've done all the work of curating your wardrobe and you don't want it to fall apart. How do you actually make those clothing pieces last for as long as you possibly can? That is the goal when you're buying slow fashion or sustainable fashion, or just building a wardrobe that you feel represents you and you want to wear time and time again. It is obviously super important to make sure that clothing lasts. This is probably going to be a very quick and short video and just cover the tips very broadly, because I feel like this is more just like a refresh reminder kind of video. And the first thing, if you want your clothing pieces to last, is to buy high quality clothing in the first place. I do have an entire video on that. You guys can go check that one out. Maybe you want to watch that one before you continue watching this one, or save that one for later so you can go back and watch it. But in that video, I talk about all about the materials, all about like the stitching and construction, what kind of makes something actually high quality versus just buying whatever you see on the rack and it falling apart a few wears later. So that's going to be your first biggest thing about having clothing last longer, is just making sure it's of good quality in the first place. So yeah, definitely recommend you watch that video. The first tip that I have is don't wash your clothing after every single wear, unless obviously it's very visibly soiled and dirtied. I'm talking like, let's say you dropped spaghetti sauce on it or something, obviously then you should wash it. But let's say it's like a t-shirt that you wear every day in and out, you don't have to wash it every time after you wear it. And I feel like that's something that you're gonna have to grow used to, because I definitely was someone who I would wear something once and then throw it in the laundry basket to be washed, and yes, a lot of my clothing fell apart very quickly. But once you first of all become comfortable and kind of like train yourself like, oh, I actually don't need to wash this clothing piece, it passes the test of like, it's not quite dirty yet, then you're kind of getting into this mindset of like, first, you don't have to do laundry as often, and things definitely last a lot longer. So two of the kind of like tests I do before I determine if I need to wash my clothing pieces or not are first visible sight, kind of like a look over, like, does it have any stains? Does it have any like oil spots on it? Does it have any sort of anything that needs to be washed off immediately? Dirt, soil, food, makeup, you name it. Do I need to take care of it, and should I wash it? Secondly is a smell test. Now this is kind of like, feels like very college dorm vibes, like frat boy vibes of like, in media you see them like grab a t-shirt, sniff one, and they're like, ugh, and like throw it back down to grab another, and they're like, okay, this is all right. Obviously you don't want to get your clothing pieces to the point where it's like rancid when you pick them up and smell them, but it is something like, if it doesn't smell bad, if it doesn't look bad, why wash it? Like, there's like literally no point to washing clothing that is not dirty or smelling bad. You do definitely want to like wear deodorant and shower and stuff, so that also helps your clothing last longer. If you're sweating in it and it smells like body odor, you are gonna have to wash your clothing a bit more frequently than if you just were to like shower and put deodorant on. So there's maybe like a personal hygiene aspect to all of this too as well. Yeah, that's the first one. I feel like that, not that it shocks a lot of people, but it's definitely something that we're really in the habit of, is just washing something after you wear it, like literally every time, and that's so unnecessary, and definitely something I had to learn myself, and it took a little bit of time, but I'm glad I did. And definitely if I don't have any reason to wash it, I just hang it back up and it's ready for the next wear. This is especially true with jeans. I've heard people putting them in the freezer to kill germs. I'm sure you could do that with any other sort of clothing piece. I actually do that with like my facial tools. I just keep them in the freezer, A, for the cooling effect, but B, to keep it clean. And I'm sure you could do the same thing with your clothing if that's something you want to try. I don't know why you would need to, but I've heard people do it. On that same note, you definitely want to wash your clothing on cold water cycle. There are two cold water cycles. One is like the water has been cooled and then you wash your clothes with it, and the other is like tap cold. So tap water is just like room temperature water. Obviously it's different in the summer and the winter, so you just want to be conscious of that as well. but I tend to wash all of my clothes on a cold water cycle. So you don't have to heat the water and use the electricity or gas or whatever power source to heat the water, but then B, it actually makes sure that my clothes don't shrink. C, it helps keep the stains from like setting in but like washing out. If you wash, this is a good example of like period blood, like if you wash it on hot water, it most likely is going to set the stain in versus washing it fully completely out. So I definitely recommend washing with cold water for that reason. It just makes sure things last longer in terms of like the structure and the fit of them versus maybe you're accidentally shrinking them or something. Wash on cold water, don't wash very often. This also brings me to the point of dry cleaning. I have lost one too many clothing pieces to not actually following the care instructions, and that is so important. If something is not meant to be washed with any sort of detergent, you must dry clean it or else it will shrink it. It's not the fact that it got wet, it's the fact of like the detergent and the water having some sort of chemical reaction with the clothing itself. It has nothing to do with one or the other, it's a combination of them. Definitely read your care label instructions, follow them closely, make sure you're not doing something that the clothing is going to deteriorate after the fact. Like if you're not meant to dry it on a regular dry cycle, you're meant to line dry it, you should definitely pay heed to that and follow those care instructions when the time comes. Obviously, you don't need to take your dry cleaning out every time after you wear something. First of all, it's expensive. Second of all, it's unnecessary. But as need be, follow those care instructions closely and make sure you're not accidentally just destroying your clothes. I've done it once, and it was this one wool Nike yoga pullover that I still remember so vividly. I love the way it fit. I love the colors. I love everything about it. And I decided, oh, I'll just try to do it on a hand wash cycle. That'll be fine, right? I pull it out. It literally could fit a toddler, and I was devastated. So don't do what I did. Learn from my mistakes. Also, since we're on the topic of like washing, I recommend that you get a detergent or oxy booster, fabric softener, whatever it is you're using that is going to improve the life cycle, the longevity of your clothing pieces. I definitely wouldn't use something like super toxic, like bleach or anything, unless you need to, but I use these little like oxy boosters and these detergent sheets that I will link down below that you guys can check out. I find that my clothing doesn't feel like overly stripped or overly washed. It's almost like your hair, especially if you have like natural fiber clothing. You don't want something that's super harmful, super strong, and like, I'm gonna get out every tough stain. Like, obviously you want clean clothes, but you don't want things that are going to deteriorate your clothing after time and time again of using them. So I will leave a link down below what I use for my clothes. The oxy boosters are really great at getting out any heavy, gross scents, whitening my whites, and then taking out any stains. So I'll leave that below. And then I also love the smell of my detergent sheets. So really love those. It also cuts down on waste. It's good for your clothes, good for the planet. It's just win, 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 win all around. So I love it. My last point on how you wash your clothes, because I think this is a lot of where like deterioration comes in, is instead of drying them in the dryer, line dry them, hang them out to dry, put them out on your fire escape, put them out on a line dry right in the living room, or if you have access to a roof, I don't know, something, anything like that, or if you even have a clothesline, put them out to dry there. It's way less wear and tear of like literally tumbling around in the dryer, and then also the added heat, maybe having to run it again because it's not quite dry. Putting them out on the clothesline, just make sure that they're gonna dry fully and nicely, and it's not gonna be like a violent process of sorts. Again, it's also just better because you're using less electricity, less heat, less gas, whatever it is, but definitely like another kind of little cheat sheet in terms of drying your clothes. I'm editing and I realized I forgot two other little tips. I'm full of tips, I know. So the first one is that when you're washing, and this isn't something I did till I was a little bit older, but it's actually so important to separate the whites from everything else. I just started doing this one day. I think I finally had enough like white laundry to like wash by itself and like put an oxy booster in to like make it really white, take out the stains. And then one day I just got kind of lazy and like put everything in together, and I noticed it made everything super dingy, specifically some socks that I really like to wear as like super white socks to be like more put together, and now they're just kind of like dingy and gray, and that's my own fault. But it's definitely a tip that you don't really do until you're like doing your own laundry and you get older and you're like, oh wow, it does actually make the whites last longer. I mentioned so many tips about like how to wash clothes, and that's definitely a big one. Another one is how you store your knitwear specifically. My mom used to always fold up my knitwear, and then one day I decided I wanted to hang it up because I was rebellious, and she's like, oh, why are you hanging it up? And I was like, oh, I just want to be able to see everything. And she's like, yeah, but it's so heavy. It's like tearing down on the hanger, and it's going to like loosen it up. It's going to make it too loose. It's going to make it kind of like come apart. It's pulling down on itself. The gravity pulling on it and pulling on the seams just kind of makes it come apart a lot faster, and it's not going to hold that like tight knit that it has. And there's really no going back from that once you kind of like hang it up. Even if you like hang it upside down or something, I don't really think that it's going to make the knitwear as tight as it was as if you're folding up the pieces and taking care of them properly. So I just wanted to come on and mention those really quickly since I forgot. In relation to just keeping your clothes clean, I highly, highly recommend getting a stain removing stick. I happen to use this Tide to Go one, and I absolutely love it. It has been a lifesaver. I do this on clothes that even have like kind of old stains as well, and it helps get that out, which is so amazing. I didn't think that would ever happen, but I cannot tell you, first of all, how messy of an eater I am. I'm just like a messy person, but second of all, I'm very like accident prone, like knocking over an entire cup of coffee, which is devastating in the first place, but then absolutely detrimental to my clothing. Having a Tide to Go stick or any kind of stain remover on the go is just so key, because it keeps my clothes from like actually being fully completely ruined. Before I'm able to wash it, I can at least go in with some sort of stain remover and help lift the stain before I fully wash it, and when I get it out the wash, like the stain is gone. For me, I just don't wear stained clothing. It's just something that is like kind of like a personal bit of an ick. It's different if there's like a dye stain on something, but if there's like an oil stain, a food stain, like grease stain, something like that, I can't do it. I will not wear it anymore. It gives me, like I said, a little bit of an ick. So I love having a Tide to Go stick because I can make sure my clothes don't have any weird icky stains on them, and I am able to wear it for longer. Now, I'm not sure if there's any like sustainable alternatives specifically. This is just the one I use, and I love it. It literally is just like a little pen. Tide also smells really good. So I just push it down and like rub out the stain, and it comes out. And like, it's funny because I've definitely gotten out a lot of stains, but it's not an actual pen. Like, there's no felt tip. It's just like a plastic bit, and then it's like kind of just helps you erase the stain. It's really cool. I really recommend something like this, if not, you know, a Tide stick itself. Definitely has come in handy a lot of times, so it just helps. Okay, the last chunk of advice I have for you, not just a piece, yes, an entire chunk of advice, is to make repairs to your clothing as you go. This is a lot easier said than done because repairing does take time. It does take a level of skill required, and it also just takes you having the care for your clothing in the first place. And that's why I really suggest investing in high quality pieces, because then you're just way more likely to want to repair them, want to take care of them, want to make sure that they last a long time. When you are making repairs, obviously it's going to take some level of skill, whether you have a sewing machine or like a little sewing kit that you can get literally at Walgreens or something. They sell them kind of everywhere. You're gonna have to learn a little bit how to do that, or maybe you have a family friend or a family member that knows how to sew things like pretty quickly and easily, and they like wouldn't mind doing it for you. You can always obviously pay people. You can go to a tailor and get repairs or hems or altering, like anything like that, whether it's like adding on a button or patching up kind of like ripped jeans or something. I actually have a pair of ripped jeans that I want to repair myself and take on that project and kind of like enjoy the process of like learning something new. I'm excited to do that. Maybe I'll make like some sort of content from that, but it's definitely gonna be a challenge. There's also all sorts of fun different ways to repair things. You don't just have to sew it back up, but you can even do patchwork, you can do woven work. There's all sorts of like fun creative things, if you're up for the challenge, that you can do to your repairs and make it that much more unique and that much more like, wow, I love this piece of clothing. I put my worth into it, I put my value, my time into it, and I want to keep it around for as long as I possibly can. Now, repairs are a huge part of the slow fashion scene, so I definitely recommend getting into that. There's so much content out there. There's so many different things to learn. It's all at your fingertips. Like, you can get it as quickly as you can think of it. So definitely use that to your advantage. There are tons of resources out there for repairing your clothes. And that's probably the best thing that you can do instead of something like getting a rip or a tear, throwing it out, is repairing it and keeping it in rotation. There's probably a lot more ways to make sure your clothing lasts longer. If that's the case, go ahead and comment down below any extra or additional tips that you have. We would love to discuss and have this conversation about longevity. If you're unable to make your clothes last for a super long time, that doesn't mean you have to throw them out. Maybe you can repurpose them to be rags for around the household instead of using paper towels. That's something that I've done, and I have really loved it, because then I know, like, oh, this used to be a t-shirt, or this used to be something I wear, and now it's a rag that I wash the windows with or wipe the counters with. Even if you can't make it last forever as a clothing piece in your closet, there's still extra use for it. Even beyond then, you just have to be creative and be open to the challenge of it all. There are plenty of other slow fashion content videos that I have created. If you guys want to stick around to the end, there's going to be a video recommended just for you. And also, don't forget to check out the playlist of all the other slow fashion content that I've made recently. This is a series that I've really been enjoying, and it's kind of what my channel is about in the first place, so I'm really excited to be getting into the nitty-gritty of all these topics and giving you guys tips and advice. So if you like these kinds of videos, don't forget to subscribe. I upload on every Sunday. Also, don't forget to like if you liked the video. I will see you guys next week, next Sunday. Tune in then. Until then, don't forget to be kind to yourself, others, and the planet. Bye!